Okay, so this video is about aggression. Oops, sorry. I have a nonverbal child on the spectrum. She is now 22. She was diagnosed at 15 months. And when she was little, it was really, really tough. She screamed constantly. And she had a brother that was also on the spectrum. He's 2 years older than her. So they were toddlers together. They were little kids together. They went to school together. They were very close in age. They did everything together. But she was on the spectrum and she didn't have any words and she would scream a lot. And he started to get his speech at about maybe 5 years old. And so his speech was limited. But they would set each other off. And he got into a school and got into a program, and he started getting his language, and he did special needs for a while, but he got out of special ed, and he was in special ed for a while, and then he got out and he went into general ed, and he ended up being really, really smart. He was just delayed in speech. And my daughter, I thought, well, she's going to follow, she's going to do the same thing. And that didn't happen for her. She plateaued about 2 to 3 years in, and we struggled a lot. And she didn't get any words until like maybe, gosh, almost maybe 9 or 10 years old. But I knew in the beginning, and so this video is about aggression. I want you to know that if you have a child and you're getting a diagnosis, the earlier you get a diagnosis, the better, in my opinion. And this is why, because I see a lot of parents that have older children, because we do a lot of Special Olympics and things like that where kids are 9, 10, 12, 15, 18, and older, and they have a lot of aggression and a lot of behavior issues. And I never had that with my daughter, and it wasn't because she was easy. It wasn't because she didn't have meltdowns and throw tantrums. It's that when she was throwing meltdowns and full-blown tantrums, when she would throw herself all the way back, well, at the time she was 2 years old. So, I could catch her. She wasn't that heavy. I could carry her. I could just swoop her up and pick her up, and we can get out of the situation. But I knew then, if I don't take care of this now, this is something that will come back and bite me in the butt. So I need to take care of this now. And so I started at a very, very young age, even though she did not have words, I always was saying please and thank you and no thank you and yes ma'am and no ma'am, because I wanted her to have respect. When she did things with her hands, hitting, self-hitting, things like that, would, I would grab her hands and you redirect. The Another rule that we had was that I never used negatives in my language. So it was hard at first, but I learned. I never said, don't do that or stop doing that. I never used any kind of negatives with her. I redirected her. I redirected her to put your hands down, or, I said or I spoke what I wanted her to do rather than telling her what I wanted her to stop doing. So I never used negatives as much as, did I slip every now and again? Maybe. But for the most part, I just never used negatives around her. I redirected her, and I always asked her to do what I wanted her to do and use those words. The other thing was that I handled it, and so we started early for her. At 2 years old, wasn't under control. 3 years old, wasn't under control. 4, wasn't under. 5, wasn't under control. 6, wasn't under control. 7, not under control. 8, yeah, still not under control. 9, about 8 or 9 years old is when it started to be a little less. So if your kid is 2 and 3 right now and you're at 5 years old and you're like, oh my God, when is this going to end? Get it under control. I promise you, get it under control, because it will save you in the long run. I have people that tell me when she was 10, 12, 15 years old, we would go play basketball with Special Olympics, and all these other kids they're jumping off they're just bouncing around, and she would sit right next to me, and she was calm. And now you have to understand is what I did was I showed her how to tolerate. She would tolerate people around her. She would tolerate noises around her. I showed her how to tolerate that, and we did it through trial and error, exercising. We flexed that muscle for her, and she learned how to tolerate people. And sometimes we had earmuffs, sometimes we didn't have earmuffs. But to this day, she's 22 and she still uses earmuffs because she doesn't want to hear yakety yak, and she's got very sensitive auditory. So, okay, great. You don't want to hear the tick tock of the clock, then, or the air condition or the fan rotating or whatever. You don't have to. It's okay for our kids. They need that. They need to kind of unplug and disconnect. And I still allow her to do that even as a grown up. But I showed her how to tolerate. And so now when we go places, that's what she's doing. She's tolerating people. She's tolerating their noise. She's tolerating all of the stimulation that's going around, and so much. And then I can tell because I studied my daughter. I know when she's like, I'm done. Let's get the out of here. So I'll be like, yep, sorry, we got to go. And we'll leave and unapologetically, and we will leave and get out of there. But she doesn't show aggression. She had aggression in the beginning. So you want the kids, if your kids are young, you want to take care of that in the beginning when they're little, when you can pick them up when they're still little bitty kids, because when they start to get 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, they're heavy and they're bigger, and you're getting older, and they can hurt you, and their hits hurt. Their fists and their slaps or their whatever they're doing, it hurts. And then eventually they get to your height, and then sometimes they're even taller than you. And so I saw that like way ahead. So if you don't see that, let me tell you, let me clue you in. Your little toddler, take care of it now. And it's not going to happen overnight, okay? It's not going to happen overnight, but consistency. Remember, a regular kid needs 150 to 200 repetitions. Ours need 3 and 4 times that, okay? So they need more repetition. They need repetition. They need repetition. And you're going to be blue in the face with repetition, okay? But I can tell you that now, looking back, my girl is very well behaved. She's very polite. She expresses when she wants to express, and she tells me what, she will signal to me when it is that she's kind of had enough. So that's my advice for you, is to work with your children, work with them when they're little, and have patience. I didn't have patience before. I have it now. I have a whole lot of patience now. Why? Well, because I have a kid that is low functioning on the spectrum. She showed me patience. I had to have it. I had to have it. There was no other way. Okay, so you will learn patience. Okay? Hang in there. You got this.